Hello everyone. What happens when the man trying to save the woman he loves changes roads, changes direction, changes the entire plan in the middle of flight, and still begins to feel that somewhere behind him, another car is moving through the same turns, patient enough to let him hope for safety before proving that escape may already be too late? If your heart can endure a journey where every mile is measured against the safety of a frightened baby in his mother's arms, stay with me. The road away from the farmhouse should have felt like relief. It didn't. Morning stretched pale and wide over the fields, washing the narrow road in thin sunlight that made everything look too open, too exposed. Trees flickered past the windows. Dust rose behind the tires. Somewhere farther off, water flashed through reeds where the river bent low through the land. It was an ordinary countryside morning, the kind that usually carried the promise of work, market noise, children waking and cooking smoke rising from kitchens. But inside Alex's car, nothing felt ordinary. Tuna sat in the back with Henry wrapped tightly in the blue blanket, holding him against her chest with both arms as if the pressure alone could keep fear from reaching him again. He had cried himself almost empty already. Now he drifted between sleep and unrest, too exhausted to stay fully awake, too overstimulated to rest deeply. Every sudden turn of the car, every change in Alex's breathing, every pause before a junction seemed to move through the tiny body in her arms. Sometimes Henry went limp with tiredness. Then, without warning, his little face would scrunch, his lashes flutter, and a weak, distressed cry would break from him before he buried himself harder against her. At 1 year old, he could not ask where they were going. He only knew that home was behind them, and the adults holding his world together were afraid. In the front seat, Alex kept one hand steady on the wheel and the other close to his phone, his mind already moving faster than the road. The caller's last words still sat like poison inside him. Now you're finally bringing them where I wanted. He had changed the destination. What he had not yet changed was the possibility that someone else was still watching the road. And several turns later, when the same dark sedan appeared again in the side mirror where it should no longer have been, Alex understood that this escape was not going to be simple. At first he told himself not to assume. A black sedan on a road like this could mean nothing. People traveled, goods moved, farmers, brokers, suppliers, drivers. There were a dozen reasons the same vehicle might appear once, then again. But Alex had been living inside patterns for too many hours now to dismiss repetition so easily. He had turned off the main route once already, taking a smaller road past an irrigation canal and then cutting through a lane lined with tamarind trees. The kind of road strangers did not choose by accident. The sedan had disappeared then. That should have settled it. Instead, 10 minutes later, when he slowed near a fork and checked the mirror again, there it was at a careful distance behind them. Not close enough to force panic. Not far enough to be forgotten. Alex's eyes narrowed slightly. In the back, Tuna had just managed to get Henry calmer. The baby's face was tucked into her shoulder, one hand trapped between his chest and the blanket, the other weakly tangled in the fabric near her collarbone. She was rubbing his back in slow, measured strokes, counting the rhythm without realizing it. Every now and then she bent her head and touched her cheek to his hair, not because she thought it would solve anything, but because mothers with frightened babies often soothed themselves by soothing the child. The quiet inside the car was so fragile that Alex did not want to break it too suddenly. Still, he said her name. Tuna. She looked up at once, and the fact that she did so with fear already waiting in her eyes told him she had never really relaxed after the phone call. What is it? Alex kept his voice even. Don't turn around quickly. That was enough. Henry stirred immediately as her body tensed. Tuna forced her shoulders to loosen, but her hand on his back had changed rhythm already. Why? She asked softly. I may be wrong. He watched the mirror again. But I don't think we're alone on the road. For a second, she did not move at all. Then, very slowly, as if adjusting Henry's blanket, she angled herself just enough to catch a glimpse through the rear window. The sedan was there, small in the distance, dark, unremarkable. Patient, Tuna turned back without another look. Henry let out a weak little sound, sensing the tremor that passed through her chest. She kissed the side of his head at once. Maybe it's just another car, she whispered. Maybe. The answer should have been comforting, it wasn't. Alex used maybe the way careful men used words when they were already thinking 3 steps ahead. He took the next turn without signaling. choosing a narrow road that curved sharply through low fields and then past a cluster of old warehouses near the riverbank. If the sedan stayed on the main road, that would end it. In the mirror, it kept coming. Tuna saw the answer in Alex's face before she looked again. Her throat tightened. "Alex, I know." Henry startled at the sound of fear entering both voices. His face crumpled, and a small crying fit broke from him again, breathless, unhappy, far too tired to be this frightened but helpless against it. Tuna gathered him higher and began whispering to him in a rush of soft, broken comfort. "It's all right, baby. Mommy's here. It's all right." The baby's cries came in thin waves, enough to slice through the car. Alex gripped the wheel harder. There was a special kind of cruelty and danger that entered a confined space with a child. No room to pace, no room to rock properly, no room for the ordinary rituals that usually helped. Only the road, the motion, and the desperate hope that a mother's body could still feel like safety when everything else had changed. Alex forced himself to think coldly. If they were being followed, then whoever was behind them likely wanted one of three things: their location, their routine, or their panic. He could not let them have any of those. He took out his phone and made a quick call through the car system. "Min," he said when the line connected, "I need you to listen, not ask questions yet." The man on the other end answered instantly, voice alert. "I'm here." Alex gave him two false locations in calm succession. One near his city house, one farther inland, then added a third detail that mattered more than the others. "If either place is watched or discussed in the next 30 minutes, I want to know who moves first." Tuna listened from the back, understanding enough to feel the shape of it even if not every detail. He was setting bait while they were still running. He ended the call and turned the wheel again, taking yet another unexpected route. The sedan did not speed up. That was what frightened him most. A reckless pursuer would have been easier. Something direct could be countered directly, but the car behind them was disciplined. It allowed distance. It did not crowd. It simply remained, like a statement. The road narrowed further, broken in places by patches of uneven gravel. Henry's crying softened only because exhaustion pulled harder than fear. His body had gone slack again, but not peacefully. Every few minutes a little shiver ran through him and his mouth trembled before settling. Tuna kept one hand cupped over the back of his head to shield it from the movement of the car. "He's too warm," she whispered after a while. Not from fever, but from having cried and clung for too long. "He needs to sleep properly." Alex checked the road, the mirror, the turn ahead. "We'll stop soon." She did not ask where, because she knew he no longer had a fixed answer. Instead, she said the more dangerous thing. "If they're following because of me and Henry, then you should let them follow you, not us." Alex's eyes lifted to the mirror again. "No, you don't even know where this ends." "I know enough." "What if?" He cut her off gently, but with steel beneath it. "There is no version of this where I separate you from me on an open road with them still behind us." That ended it. Tuna looked down at Henry. The baby had finally drifted into a shallow sleep again, but his little brow was still creased, his breath unsteady from the remains of crying. One sock had slipped half off under the blanket. She fixed it with trembling fingers and stared at the tiny foot for a second longer than necessary, because sometimes the smallest thing was the only thing keeping grief from swallowing the whole body. Alex saw a service road ahead, nearly hidden between overgrown shrubs and a row of leaning fence posts. He took it without warning. The car jolted hard. Henry woke crying again. Tuna's entire body folded around him instinctively, shielding, holding, apologizing. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry." The sound tore through Alex, but he did not look back. He watched the mirror. For 3 seconds there was nothing. For 5. For 8. Then the dark sedan rolled slowly past the mouth of the service road. It kept going. Alex did not breathe fully until it disappeared behind the trees. But even then, he did not move the car. He waited. The road was quiet except for Henry's thin crying and the ticking engine. Sunlight cut through the leaves and broken lines over the windshield. Somewhere close by, water moved with a low hidden sound beyond reeds and brush. The world had gone so still it almost felt staged. Then, after nearly half a minute, the sedan reversed into view. Tuna saw it too. This time she did not speak. She simply held Henry tighter while Alex's face changed into something colder than fear. because now there was no doubt left at all. Alex started the car again before the sedan fully entered the side road. He did not accelerate wildly. That would have confirmed panic and given the other driver the exact reaction he wanted. Instead, he pulled forward with controlled speed, following the narrow lane until it split near an old pump station, and then cutting right toward a stretch of broken riverside road that barely counted as a road anymore. The sedan came after them, not fast, just certain. Tuna could hear her own pulse now, could hear Henry's crying and the rough sound of her own attempts to calm him, could hear gravel striking the underside of the car as though the road itself were being torn apart beneath them. Everything in her wanted to ask Alex whether they were in danger, whether the car behind belonged to the same people, whether this road led anywhere safe. But the answer to all of that already lived in the set of his shoulders. Henry was crying harder now, jolted fully awake by the motion. At 1 year old, he had no defense except protest and contact. He pushed his face into her neck, then away, then back again, mouth open and helpless, sobbing, his tiny hands clutching at the blanket and her blouse without direction. Tuna could not even rock him properly in the back seat. She could only hold him tight and whisper to him over and over until the words themselves turned into rhythm. Alex looked at the mirror, the road, the mirror again. They were approaching the river stretch now. To the left, tall reeds. To the right, a line of abandoned storage sheds and one small raised access road leading toward an older embankment. He knew this area from years earlier, from a land inspection that had never turned into purchase. Most people did not use these roads unless they had reason. That was exactly why he had come. He took the embankment road suddenly. The tires climbed hard, the car tilted. Tuna sucked in a breath and tightened around Henry instinctively. The baby screamed once in alarm, then broke into ragged sobs that seemed too big for his body. "I know," she whispered desperately. "I know, I know, I know." Behind them, the sedan hesitated for the first time. That was all Alex needed. He drove up the embankment road and then swung behind the concrete wall of an abandoned loading platform, killing the engine the moment they were hidden from direct view. The silence after motion was violent. Henry's crying filled it at once. Tuna bent over him, cheek to his head, arms closing as fully as the cramped seat allowed. His little body shook with effort. Alex turned halfway in his seat. "Can you keep him low?" She nodded, tears standing in her eyes from pure strain. "He's scared, I know." Alex watched through the narrow gap beside the wall. The sedan rolled slowly along the lower riverside road, passed the turn, slowed again, then kept going. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Still he did not move. He did not trust simple disappearance anymore. Henry's cries softened into choking little after sobs. Tuna rubbed his back in small circles, then rested her hand there, feeling the tremors ease one by one. His lashes were wet. His mouth still trembled. Slowly, exhaustion reclaimed him. He pressed his face against her and clung there, breathing hard but quieter. Alex finally exhaled. Not relief, just the recognition that the first move had worked. He waited another full minute before restarting the engine. "We're leaving this road," he said. "And from now on, assume every obvious place is wrong." Tuna swallowed. "Where are we going?" He looked at her in the rearview mirror first, before answering. "Somewhere only two people know." The sentence should have been comforting. Instead, it carried the weight of how little certainty remained in the world. This time he took the longer route, weaving between river lanes, through a half-abandoned fishing district, then across a narrow bridge where the water below flashed silver-white in the late morning sun. The sedan did not reappear, but Alex did not relax. A skilled tail did not need to stay visible to remain dangerous. He kept altering direction until even the road signs began to feel disconnected from the morning they had started in. At last, the car turned through a rusted side gate, nearly hidden by bamboo and wild growth. Beyond it stood a low riverside house raised slightly off the ground, old but intact, half screened by trees and facing a strip of moving water behind the property. It was not grand. It was not recent. It looked like the kind of place time had mostly forgotten. For the first time in more than an hour, Tuna felt the car actually stop in a way that suggested arrival rather than strategy. Henry had fallen into a deep, wrung-out sleep at last, heavy in her arms, one fist still tangled in the blue blanket. His cheeks were flushed, his lashes clumped slightly from dried tears. He looked heartbreakingly spent. Alex came around and opened the back door quietly. "We're here." Tuna tried to move, but her body had locked around Henry from holding him so long. Alex saw it immediately. "Wait," he said softly. He set the bag down first, then offered one arm not to take Henry from her, but to steady her as she got out without waking him. It was such a careful gesture, so respectful of the fact that a sleeping, frightened baby could be undone by one wrong shift, that it nearly brought tears back to her eyes. Together they crossed into the house. Inside, the air was cool and carried the faint scent of old wood, river wind, and linen kept clean though rarely used. The rooms were simple: a narrow sofa, a table, 2 lamps, one bedroom already prepared with fresh sheets, another small room beside it. On a chair lay folded towels. On the side shelf sat bottled water, tea, and Tuna noticed with a jolt too soft to name 2 new baby cloths, still in their packaging. Alex followed her gaze and answered before she could ask. "I had Min bring supplies the first time I considered using this place. The first time. Not today, some earlier moment, some earlier fear." Tuna said nothing because Henry had stirred and she needed all her attention to keep him asleep. Alex guided her toward the bed. She laid the baby down slowly, surrounding him with the blanket so he would still feel enclosed. Henry whimpered once, then settled, his tiny hand opening and closing once near his cheek before sleep pulled him under again. Only then did Tuna straighten fully. The room suddenly felt too quiet. Alex's phone vibrated. Both of them froze. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. Again. The blood drained from Tuna's face. Alex answered without stepping away this time. The voice on the line was calm, almost amused. "You took longer than I expected." Alex's jaw hardened. "Who are you?" A faint pause. Then check the table. The line ended. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then Alex turned toward the front room and crossed it in 3 strides. Tuna followed only as far as the bedroom door, unwilling to go farther from Henry than that. On the front table, where nothing had been before, lay a single folded note. Alex stared at it. He had checked this room when they entered. The table had been empty, which meant one of 2 things. Either the note had been placed so precisely he had missed it during the rush, or someone had been here after all. He unfolded it. Only 5 words were written there. "I knew you'd choose water." Alex went completely still. Behind him, from the bedroom doorway, Tuna felt the floor seem to drop beneath her. Because if the caller had predicted the road, predicted the change of destination, and now predicted this house by the river, then there were almost no pieces of Alex's mind left that the enemy was not already studying. The road meant to save Tuna and Henry became its own test, with Alex forced to think faster than the people hunting them, while a terrified baby cried in his mother's arms through every turn. He managed to shake the car following them and bring them to the old riverside house, but safety lasted only long enough to become another wound. The new note waiting inside proves that danger is not simply nearby. It is intimate, patient, and disturbingly familiar with the way Alex thinks. And now, with Henry finally asleep and Tuna staring at yet another message from the dark, the next question is more frightening than pursuit itself. Who knows Alex well enough to predict even his hidden refuge by the water?